I was born and raised in the projects. On top of that, this was during the 80s and 90s when the crack epidemic was in full swing. So, from my poverty stricken patch of the inner city, I had a front row seat to all the violence and addiction going on. When I was around 4 years old, my babysitter left out what I thought was a toy water gun, and I decided to have some fun with it and spray it around a bit. Well, it turns out that water gun was a syringe, and the water it was filled with was heroin. Now, this crackhead, and I know that heroin and crack ain't the same thing, but I've been around her and her junkie posse while they were smoking what I would later learn was crack, so they're all crackheads in my memory, didn't kick my ass the way you might expect someone for wasting her high and the money spent on it would. But her and my mom got into a crazy argument when she came to pick me up. Now, my mom knew she was using, but using her for a babysitter was the best option she had at the time. Mother relatives were messed up with their own legal and social problems, and they didn't live near us anyway. My biological father had deserted us to go live in Philadelphia, and her old boyfriend used to beat on me and my baby sister so badly with shit like metal coat hangers that a lot of times we were left open with cuts. And you know the beatings are bad when other hood moms who beat the hell out of their kids too are telling their gang members' sons and nephews to deal with the coward on sight. It was a rough spot, and a little bit of welfare benefits the state give you don't last forever. So my mom had to find temp work, and we weren't at school age yet, so it was either this or eviction. And if you get evicted from the projects, you ain't got no place to go except family, and like I said, half of them were in jail and the other half were just as bad or worse. Years later, when I asked my mom about this story, just to be sure I wasn't making it up, she told me what the fight was about. My mom wanted to know why there was a loaded spike out where a 4-year-old could get it, and the junkie bird just wanted to be reimbursed. The wild part is, just to paint a picture of how rough things were, my mom kept letting her babysit me, because again, what are you going to do? Now, one of the things I've always admired about hard drug users is their unapologetic attitude toward their addiction. And when you think about it, this attitude makes sense. If you're doing something wild as shooting up or smoking rocks, you're way past the point of caring what other people think. At the very least, you care more about getting that fixed than you do about anything else, including, and likely especially, the opinions of other people, even if you're watching their kids. You know you're a piece of shit. Everyone else knows you're a piece of shit, so why pretend? It's your reality now, so not only do you embrace it, but you try to share it in some backwards-ass way of normalizing it. The hardest drug I've ever done was I smoked some hash off of a grimy countertop through a straw sticking out of a glass bowl. And I did it for the dumbest reason of all. A girl I was hooking up with and her friends were smoking it, and I wanted to fit in, and I wanted her to keep banging me and not look like a little bitch. Oh, and I did shrooms once with the same girl, but I don't really count that because we all ate the shrooms out of these peanut butter sandwiches, and one of the girls' hippie roommates substituted the white bread for some type of walnut vegan mess, and it almost killed me because I'm highly allergic to nuts. Funnily enough, being high as a kite on a psychedelic probably saved my life because it kept my airways from constricting. Because I definitely wasn't going to take my no insurance having ass to the hospital, and I didn't have an EpiPen either because I lacked insurance. Now here's an interesting side note. While writing this episode, I finally did some research into this incident that happened like 20 years ago, just to see if there was some connection between psilocybin, the official name for mushrooms, and the allergic response like the one I had. It turns out that there's a well-researched and documented effect that shrooms have on the inflammatory proteins released during an allergic reaction. Now, I'm not a doctor, and this is definitely not medical advice, so don't go blaming a dude on YouTube if you're going through anaphylaxis and instead of taking your ass to the hospital, you decide to go on a trip. Still, I'll put the link in the description so you can read all about it, just so you know I'm not talking out of my ass about this. So I guess I've done semi-hard drugs, but never the hard stuff. But I have been offered them on numerous occasions. And for future reference for the rest of this video, hard drugs are anything you have to cook, cut, stretch, or compress to consume. Every time I've been offered them, it's been while the person is about to use or is right in the middle of using them right in front of me. I used to think it was just them being polite, but it was mostly that normalization thing I was talking about earlier. I used to do the same thing in my alcoholic days when I was drinking a fifth of Mad Dog and Thunderbird a day. And don't hate on the bum wines, my taste reflected my budget. I drank everywhere, around everyone and at any function because I needed to feel like my constant state of inebriation was accepted and therefore normal. That meant everyone I knew had to know about it so they could accept it because after all, alcohol is the only drug that people think you have a problem if you don't do it. So in this weird, messed up way, I was trying to normalize everyone around me to accept me not being normal. I just took it way too far, which is why I've been sober since December 23rd, 2013. If you want to learn more about that and what I did to finally kick the habit after several attempts and near DUI experiences, check out the link in the pinned comment. Now, remember, my dad wasn't around much, but one of the few times I spent with him, I remember he used to put the club on his car. A lot of the younger viewers won't remember this, but it's basically an oversized bike lock that you put on your steering wheel. Apparently, sales of these things are still strong, but I never see them, likely due to the proliferation of RF keys. When I was 5, I asked him why he did this, and he told me so it was some crackhead didn't steal his car and sell it for $5. Now, 5-year-old me had already seen the neighbors smoking crack, so I kinda understood what a crackhead could do, but I didn't really understand these creatures and what they were capable of. I just thought it was funny as hell that someone could sell a car for $5. There's this concept called crack prices, where something is priced absurdly low to expedite the sale of it. Crackheads aren't exactly known for their ability to plan for the future, as evidenced by them hitting the pipe in the first place, nor are they known by their impulse control. So rather than try to get the best price available for their wares by haggling and negotiating, you end up with fiends who will sell you a PlayStation, a pack of ground beef, and a microwave, all stolen, some of it from the person they're trying to sell it back to, for $20. And if you don't have the $20 in cash, they'll accept whatever you have or the $40 equivalent in food stamps. Now, food stamps are another one of those nostalgic throwbacks to the 80s and 90s, like the club. So older viewers, bear with me for a minute as I explain this to the 10% of my viewers who were born after 9/11. If that's you, you've probably never heard of or seen an actual food stamp outside of a museum of ghetto history. That's a joke, unless it actually exists. But the hood used to have its own currency, worth 50 cents of $1. Today, you just have EBT. Now, it's been a long time since I've been in the hood, but I've heard that crackheads have learned the technology and adapted. When you combine the short-lived high of crack, its highly addictive nature, and the inability to run a profitable side hustle, you end up with the legendary crackhead hustle. I was 11 the first time I became aware of the crackhead hustle. One morning, my mom was on her way to work, and I was on my way to school. We were walking together when we saw this junkie coming straight towards us. I was freaking out, but my mom, a grizzled veteran of many crackhead encounters, remained steadfast on her path to work. Now, this fiend just dashed right past us like he didn't even see us, and my mom blurted out, "I've been watching that same crackhead for 4 days and nights running around here trying to score."